Welcome back to On Texas Football's Wednesday night Longhorn live stream. I'm your host, Amanda Atwell, joined with CJ Vogel and Jeff Howe. How are we doing tonight, guys? Midweek, ready for some more Texas football, I'm sure, but just trying to get through right now.
Terrific. Great. My daughter decided to put butterflies on my microphone stand, so they're staying there for this show.
That's festive. I love that.
That was pretty cool, Jeff. I like that. On top of that, it's a little celebration. Just hit 200,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
So congrats to the UTEP family, and thank you for everybody for being a part of it, not just on this Wednesday evening, but all the way throughout this journey as well.
Yeah, I don't think my 7-year-old had 200K in mind, but she's very persuasive nonetheless. So the butterflies are going to stick around for a minute.
I like those butterflies. I feel like, my microphone's pink, so we kind of match in a way there, but butterflies are better, I think. So how are y'all feeling about this week? We got a couple more days to prepare. What are we thinking about UTEP coming up this weekend?
Yeah, ultimately the spread's 41.5 for a reason, right? Texas should dominate. They should go out there. They should win this game by a lot of points. How many, we'll see. Texas was favored by 36 last week. Didn't quite get there. But ultimately, look, this is, again, a team in which Texas is more talented on both sides of the football. Go out there, show the improvement from weeks 1 to week 2 to week 3 and moving forward, and ultimately just continue to check the boxes of a few things, right? Cleaning up penalties, cleaning up third downs, continuing to play complementary football, take care of the football, take away the football, laundry list. I could go on and on, but ultimately just continue to show the improvements in games like this. That's all I could ask for. And I bet we see a better team week 3 than we did week 2, which was certainly a better team than we saw week 1.
I wrote over at OnTexasFootball.com today, CJ, we talked about this Monday after the press conference, just looking back at why some of this stuff is happening, like why Texas hadn't hit its stride relative to some other teams in the country, like, Penn State, by James Franklin's account, lackluster last week. Dabo's saying his offense sucks publicly, like Brian Kelly. Not that Brian Kelly's ever happy, but he wasn't happy after the Louisiana Tech game. So, it kind of reinforces and made me feel a little bit better. Okay, what's happening at Texas? Like, it's not just a Texas problem. I think we've talked about it. I've mentioned it all offseason. There's an inexperience problem in college football now that the era of the super senior is over, no more COVID eligibility and the transfer portal, rosters in 2025 are going to be less experienced maybe than they've ever been, at least that they've been in a while. So it's understandable that Texas is having some of these issues. At the same time, though, one thing Sark mentioned on Monday that I keep going back to that I really want to see is when he talked about, hey, we need to focus on fundamentals over scheme and make sure you're developing players. And I think for the coaches, guys, I think there's been a lot of reflecting hey, I think maybe the staff got a little comfortable, maybe miscalculated, one, maybe how far ahead this team would be early, but two, kind of took for granted, not that you didn't coach, because this coaching staff works their tails off, but man, when you've got guys like, Jake Majors and Hayden Connor in the O-line room, or just go around, a guy like Janae Barron, guys that have played Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton on D-line, they'd gotten kind of comfortable having guys that had played a ton of college football. You just don't have that this year. So I guess I say all that to say, I think the players are kind of readjusting expectations relative to where they are right now. I think the staff is having to kind of recalibrate and say, all right, maybe we need to work a little bit more on fundamentals and make sure we kind of, put screws down a little bit to make sure we're good. And I think for the fan base, for, us that follow it, everybody that watches Texas football, I think it's maybe just an understanding that, probably wasn't going to be, at least now we know, it wasn't just to add water and stir for this team to be great. It's going to take some time, and we'll monitor, we'll track the progress. That's going to be the fun part, but it needs a little bit more work than I think we all thought, especially me included.
I do think there's something to that, because a lot of Texas fans, you live in your own echo chamber of the fans around you that you're surrounded by, of their just negative responses to the game not going exactly the way they want to. But I would beg of any of those fans to look at Georgia Twitter this weekend, or look at, like you said, Louisiana or LSU Twitter. Just look at those different fan bases and how frustrated they are as well. And Clemson, obviously, just not not feeling great. And these are a lot of teams where there were a lot of question marks coming into the season, especially about these offenses with more inexperience than they're used to, even though they were very highly ranked coming into the season. So I do think there is a lot to that there.
Can I steal a line real quick?
Go for it.
And I hope y'all don't put me on mute, Matthew specifically. Most in the chat, I hope y'all don't turn off. But winning's hard.
Oh no!
You went there, dude. CJ.
I mean, come on. Well, like, to go off of what you just said, Jeff. I mean,
If I had a hat, I would throw it right now. But proceed. Sorry.
My point. I mean, you got brand new players on both sides of the football. This is all stuff that we've seen throughout the country. You just mentioned 3 schools there that probably haven't been too pleased with their performance this year. I could add Penn State. Week 2 did not look good either. Really, I was having this conversation the other day. Which teams look like they've been dominant football teams in the top 10 so far? I would say there's probably 2. I would say that's Ohio State and probably Oregon. Who else could I really for sure say that they've played the game the way that they should have and taken care of business the way that they should have for all 4 quarters or for all 8 quarters of this season? Right now, there really just aren't many. So growing pains across the country. And yeah, I had to throw that one in there. A little subtle jab to the last, 8 years ago. So
see, we wiped the slate clear from the John Mateer stuff last night. Like, you had a fresh start, CJ.
Oh, it's already in the comments already.
He's already episode.
He's already getting poked.
No, look, I'll that verbiage aside. Yeah, I mean, I went back and looked at it today, CJ. I'm a big believer in Bill Connolly. Have been way long before he got to ESPN. Every year he tallies returning experience, and the Texas offense, I think, according to Bill Connolly, returned 40% of the production from last year. It was 109th in the country. Now, we know Arch Manning is really talented, and Trevor Gooseby and Cole Hudson coming back and starting. There are pieces to this offense. Jack Indry's coming into the transfer portal. There are pieces to this offense that could make it an offense capable of helping you win a national championship. It's just pretty evident that it's not there right now. I think where some of that fear factor comes in is, all right, is it going to get there? Do you have enough time for it to get there by the time you get to SEC play? That's why, I'm not saying the next 8 quarters of non-conference play are the most important 8 quarters of the season, but we'll probably, whatever this season becomes, we'll probably look back at the UTEP game and the Sam Houston game and say either, yeah, they're on the cusp of a national championship again, and it started to come together in those 2 games. You could see the seeds of it, or it was a mess the first 2 games. It was a mess those 2 games, and it's been a mess all year with this team. More often than not, their toughest opponent's going to be themselves. Because, man, I'll throw Georgia in there too. I don't think there's anybody on the schedule left that's going to out-talent Texas. I just don't think there is. So there are going to be days where the toughest opponent is going to be yourself. And Texas gave itself a much tougher challenge than was necessary against San Jose State. Doesn't need to be that way against UTEP.
I do think, I saw this comment up here, winning shouldn't look as hard as it looked last Saturday. I do think it's a little bit dramatic to say that winning looked hard when you won by 31 points, regardless of it not being the prettiest win. I don't think that's a hard win. It was obviously, you're still winning by 31 points there. But at the same time, new opponent this week, different talent levels. UTEP coach Scotty Walden had a press conference yesterday. He was very complimentary of Texas during this press conference. He also mentioned there have been some upsets this year. I don't know if we've had quite as major of an upset of a Northern Illinois over a Notre Dame. But he mentioned those
gave it his best shot.
Yeah, there's been a couple this year, and he's been making sure his team knows about them coming into this game.
Coach, I think anyone can beat anybody any single week. And I know on the outside world will be like, yeah, right, call you crazy. What are the, Vegas will pick whatever, but look, we've been in this thing long enough to understand, football is the most humbling game in the world. And, I had Jeff Cody, my high school basketball coach, won 700 games in his career. He used to say this all the time. Sometimes when we were going against juggernauts, he was like, sometimes it ain't about being the better team. You just got to be better than them that day. So out of 365 days in the calendar year, we just got to be better than them on that one day. It may not mean we're the better team or we got the more talent or whatever, but what kind of approach are our kids going to have? And that's one of my challenges to our guys. I mean, I'll tell you, I threw up every G5 that's beating a P4 on Monday to the kids, and I'm like, why not us? Like Northern Illinois last year, you think they went into the game against Notre Dame and they said, yeah, hey, let's just bow down and lose this game? Like, that's never going to – I've said this since the day when I got here. Like, that is never going to be our approach. People ask me all the time, and I've never coached at the P5 level. I've always been a small school guy and working up. And, like, what's your take? You guys are playing Tennessee this week or Alabama. What's your expectation? Well, the hell, the expectation is to win. I mean, like, we're the people in the arena. Our expectation is to win the game. Our expectation is to go compete. Like, and there's nothing wrong with having that expectation. If you put us in the arena, like, we're going to go compete to freaking win. If we're playing my son's Pee Wee team or we're playing the Green Bay Packers, like, we're going to compete to win. We put checkers out there. We're going to compete to win in checkers. That ought to be the mentality of our team. And I think that's the type of team that we have.
What do y'all think about that?
Oh boy.
Uh-oh.
CJ referenced Tom Herman and I'm muted. We're off to a roaring start here in the first 10, 15 minutes of the show. No, it's that whole Herm Edwards deal. Like, you play to win the game, right? Like, I would hope Scotty Walden is telling his team that they have a chance to go win, right? Like, anybody that's a competitor, I would hope that's what you're doing. So look, I mean, the best thing Texas can do though is when you're facing an overmatched opponent, the best thing you can do is just crush their hopes as early as possible, make it pretty evident that they don't belong on the same field with you and they're just going to have to ride it out. I think that's what the further removed we get from the San Jose State game. CJ, we talked about this on Monday. Like, I think the most frustrating thing for me about that game, it wasn't really the start. It was the fact that you got up 28-0 and then just kind of put it in cruise control. Like, you're not a team that's at the point yet where it can do that and still put up a 50 burger or whatever. Like, you've got to keep mashing the gas, and it's on the players, it's on Sark, it's on everybody. So, I would hope Scotty Walden is telling his team that. I would, if I'm a UTEP fan, alum, whatever, parent of a player, and I heard the opposite was being said, I probably wouldn't be too thrilled.
Yeah, he's got some Dillingham in him, in my eyes. And look, if you have a good motivator, if you have a good guy that's able to rally his football team and make them believe that they can compete against anybody on the field at any time, you can put together a team that competes against teams that they shouldn't. And I'm not going to say that UTEP's going to go down to the wire with Texas, but at schools like UTEP, at schools in that lower level, if you're able to, again, rally the troops, sort of say, and get those guys to believe that they can achieve things that otherwise they'd probably would never think that they could. Football is a sport in which you can surprise a lot of folks, and that's the kind of message you should be portraying at a school like UTEP. So I think he's a rising star. I think this is a guy that, having gotten to listen to him, Jeff, down there in San Antonio for the Texas High School Coaches Association, he gets it. And it won't be long before he's at a school where he's able to, kind of accumulate more talent that will compete against the Texases, the Texas Techs of the world. I'm saying that in the state of Texas, obviously, but they're going to be, or there's going to be a time in which he's at a much more talented school, talent-rich school, and it won't be too long before he's there.
No, charismatic guy, very, very bright offensive mind. And I'll just say it, man, because we don't get to talk like state of Texas football matters on the show much unless you're playing an opponent like UTEP. Like, I think it just needs to be reinforced how tough a job that is.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're in the state of Texas, but like, you're on an island out there in El Paso. Like, you're just kind of out of sight, out of mind. And I've talked to enough guys that have coached there, guys that have played there. Like, the community really supports that program. And the Sun Bowl is one of my kind of bucket list stadiums I haven't been to. I'd love to go see a game at the Sun Bowl at some point. But like, you're just kind of out of sight, out of mind. Like, for recruiting, it's a haul to get somebody out there. Like, unofficial visits, like, unless you're close by, like, I don't know, even Midland would be pushing it. Like, it's really tough to make it to a game. So yeah, Scotty Walden's up against it, but if he just stays the course, I feel like we'll look up in 3 or 4 years and he'll be at a much more, with all due respect to the UTEP folks out there, much more prestigious job than UTEP.
Yeah. Living in a much more lavish city, perhaps. Actually, I don't know.
I've heard a lot of good things about El Paso. I have friends that moved there for like their first TV markets, and they loved it. Like I had a friend who moved from Amarillo to El Paso, and she 10 times better than Amarillo, which is not that hard to do. But I mean, you're not inhaling quite as much dust in El Paso, I don't think.
Pot and kettle, it feels like.
That's I don't know. Anyways, we'll
with
get
all
to
due respect to Amarillo. I think the food's probably better in El Paso.
Oh, 10,000%. I've lived on a border town. Doesn't even compare. Promise you there. We'll get to a little bit more UTEP and then some new news on the recruiting front for Texas, but I'll let Jeff tell you about our friends over at South Point first.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Texas football fans, score an easy extra point this season when you get to the point at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock, including the all-new 2025 Ram 1500. Get the real deal today and drive away in an all-new Ram, proven to last. Plus, you can get employee incentive pricing. That's right. You pay what our employees pay. Now, that is a real deal. So score big today at South Point Dodge. Come see us off I-35 in South Austin or at southpointdodge.com. Get to the point at South Point Dodge.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And CJ, I hear you have some news about a linebacker that Texas has offered out of Colorado.
Yeah, Texas still working on its 2026 class. Of course, there's plenty of movement that we need to get to in terms of some visitors coming up. But Braylon Hodge, linebacker out of Cherry Creek, Colorado, that's the same high school as Gunnar Helm, has received a Texas offer. Currently committed to Michigan State. You get a look at his tape right here, but this is, again, Texas continuing to go out there nationally and take a look at a number of different options in this 2026 cycle. This is, again, a kid that Michigan State, they've been able to put a number of front seven guys into the NFL. He's 6'3", 212 pounds, has been committed to the Spartans since June 1st. On top of that, look, has a number of other offers: Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Colorado State, plenty of schools in that central Midwest that has been pursuing him for quite some time. Now the Longhorns have an offer on the sheet. We'll see if he is one in which that is able to make it to campus and really ultimately determine if he can, kind of become a more of a mainstay in this Texas recruiting landscape for the class of 26.
By the way, also a Cherry Creek High School alum, Kyle Shanahan. It's a Cherry Creek guy.
Yeah, so they got some talent up there. I also should mention Dylan Berryman, the Texas commit, tweeted a week ago that he would be making it to campus for this upcoming game. That has since changed. He is instead headed to Ole Miss this weekend. Of course, Texas still battling Auburn for D-line commit Corey Wells as well. So, look, Texas on the defensive line front could be, looking for some other options depending upon where things go over the next weeks. Of course, Jerry's been talking about Kendall Gerville. He's down in Florida currently as well. So Texas keeping in tabs with the Florida commit out west, or out on the East Coast, and then, of course, a number of guys to keep an eye on as Texas continues to build on what is right now a top 5 class in the 2026.
All right. Thanks so much, CJ. And we'll get back to talking a little bit more about UTEP. In addition to saying that he really wants to upset Texas, which is obvious. You don't want to go into a game just anticipating a loss. Scotty Walden was also very complimentary of Texas and just the concept of coming in and playing the University of Texas.
Texas guy, Adrian, from Fort Worth, and to play the University of Texas, it means a lot to me in this program, and especially our kids now that, I'd say probably 70-80% of our roster is Texas high school football players. Just to play the school in the state of Texas. You grow up and you see obviously the Aggies, the Longhorns, and and I just think that's really special for these kids. Memories that they'll create a lifetime. Obviously, that's that side of it. We're going on a business trip. I mean, our expectation is to win the game and go compete to win the game in everything we do. But at the end of the day, I think that's a really, really awesome opportunity for our kids to get to do that. I know for me, like I was coaching D3 ball, and I think it was like in 2014 maybe, at East Texas Baptist, we stopped at DK. Like we brought our kids into DKR to get to practice. And I'll never forget like looking around and being like, whoa, man, maybe one day I'll get the coach here. Like, how cool would this be? And so like, it's like a surreal moment for me as well and for our coaching staff. And so what an awesome opportunity for our guys to go make history and to go out and compete against one of the best teams in the country, let alone, the standard in the state of Texas.
I got to say, this is the first time I've really heard from him. Very charismatic dude. Seems like a good dude, good coach, somebody as an athlete would want to play for. But yeah, really cool, I feel like, for players at schools like UTEP to be able to go and play in this environment regardless.
Yeah, I have to imagine so. This is on the same way. This is how Sarkisian pitches Texas playing against Ohio State and playing at Michigan and playing at Tuscaloosa. You want to play in those big games in that same speech. For guys at UTEP, for guys at Sam Houston State, this is a big opportunity. And y'all mentioned, the Northern Illinois win over Notre Dame a year ago. Look, that one win can change the complete trajectory of an entire program, right? That was App State about 20 years ago over Michigan. So if you're able to go in there and really start to, hang around longer than you can, then you got your team really believing the impossible could happen. And again, if that's the case, that's a program-defining win, program-altering, trajectory. And I don't even want to speak that into existence. But at schools like UTEP, if you have the right guy in place at the helm, you can certainly achieve, heights that you probably never would have thought achievable before.
Even if you keep it close, like I've got, a good friend of mine played on the Texas State team in 2005 that went to what's now the FCS, but it was the 1AA semifinals. They went and played a game in Kyle Field against Texas A&M, and the Aggies were 5-6 that year. They weren't. I mean, Reggie McNeil was hurt half the year. Like, they weren't. It was a disappointing year by their standards. They underachieved, which is not abnormal for that program. But I digress. The game was supposed to be on a Saturday. It got moved up to Thursday because I want to say it was Hurricane Rita, I think, that was coming through. So they were moving games, scrambling. Anyway, Texas State goes down there, and they're going like punch for punch with A&M on a Thursday night. People still talk about that game. So even if UTEP comes in and manages to make it competitive, it's something that not just the coaches and the players on the team, like UTEP fans will be talking about it for a long time. I love the fact, guys, that Texas doing these pay games. Like, Ohio State had a rule. I don't think it applies anymore because now, you've got different conference schedules and whatnot. But it used to be if Ohio State did one of those pay games, it had to be an in-state institution that, like, they pay Toledo or Ohio U, Akron, somebody to come in basically and get their brains beat in. I like the fact that Texas is doing these pay games and keeping it in the UT system, whether it's UTEP, UTSA. Hell, maybe one day it's, UTRGV coming up and playing a game. I don't know, but I like the fact that you can keep it in the UT system.
I was talking about that on my Moving Goalpost show the other day, of just the fact that it does put a platform for these other smaller Texas universities, especially like UTSA, going in and putting up a good fight against Texas A&M in the first half as well. A lot of people who probably don't even know these schools exist if you're outside of the Texas bubble, just a good platform for them and on a much bigger stage than what they would be used to.
No doubt.
We'll talk a little bit more about UTEP in just a second, but first we'll hear from our friends at Advanced Pain Care.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. And Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and Advanced Pain Care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
Amanda, you spent time in the Valley, right?
Yes, I was the sports director at a TV station, the NBC and CBS TV station in the Valley, for 2 years. Yeah. So I got there in December of 2019, and then through the pandemic was in the Valley. So yes, I was there for a while. I was actually there when they announced the football team. I didn't get to see it come to fruition, but I was there when they announced it. Their athletic director, Chase Conk, great guy, just really, really high sights for that university. And they've converted the old soccer stadium to their football stadium, and it looks really great. I mean, it was a good soccer stadium. It's a little bit set wide stands wise to be a really good loud stadium. But I mean, starting off with that kind of stadium for them is fantastic. It's a really, really awesome thing for that university as a whole.
Yeah, I mentioned like how El Paso supports UTEP. Like I just mentioned off the cuff UTRGV, and there were like 4 or 5 responses in the chat, like people in the Valley talking about UTRGV.
Oh, yeah.
I love people in the Valley are so passionate about football. Like, and a lot of them are Texas fans, and you get a decent chunk of A&M fans. But I love the fact that the Valley has it's an FCS team right now, but a college football team that the entire Valley can just kind of wrap their arms around and call theirs. I love that for that part of the state.
Yeah, I've never paid attention to even high school football in the Valley. There's this sense of a chip on their shoulder when it comes to other areas in the state because they are an area of the state that is constantly overlooked. If you go into the playoffs and they're playing a team from San Antonio, Austin, it's just people assume they're going to get knocked out of the playoffs second, third round. There's no more teams left in the playoffs from the Valley. So, but the Valley loves football, very, very passionate rivalries down there. I believe it was San Benito and I can't remember the other school that it was with. A massive rival, one of the biggest rivalry games I've ever seen in high school football. And I've been in Austin, I've been in Dallas, I've been basically all over the place. I've been to the Texas-Arkansas Texarkana game. Wow. But it's like it is a passion down there. And so just fans will show up to those games. They've desperately needed that as far as just, I don't know, something to support. It's always been something that I knew would be successful down there. So really happy to see it come to fruition. And there's a couple old football coaches that I was friends with that are now on the staff at UTRGV. And I mean, it's really great. So I love to see that for them.
I love it.
But moving on to UTEP. So a couple interesting things on this roster, I think. Just a couple players to watch. I was looking these today. An old 5-star quarterback had some struggles at his first 2 schools, and then just a pretty solid running back, averaging 14.6 yards on 8 carries. What do y'all know about this UTEP roster and who to look out for?
Dude, I was thinking about this the other day, CJ. Like I forget that like when Lincoln Riley was still the coach at OU, like Malachi Nelson committed to Oklahoma early. Like it might have been right around the time they signed Caleb Williams. Like, okay, Malachi Nelson's going to be their next guy. Obviously, Lincoln Riley leaves, and that kind of puts Malachi Nelson on a different course. But Malachi Nelson in an alternate universe could be facing Texas in a much different game in 2025.
Yeah, well, he could be playing in a much different level of game with a much different level of intensity at any of the schools that he was at previously. Wow. But yeah, it is a weird thing to think about. Had he stuck to that timeline, ultimately, had things worked out, he'd probably be at Oklahoma. But look, Malachi Nelson, talented arm, but hasn't shown it so far this year. UTEP, not a great offense. They are not an explosive offense by any means. And again, this is a team in which Texas defensively should be able to swarm. They should be able to essentially swallow up anything that works down the field. And I say that because, look, on passes 10 yards or more down the field, UTEP this year is 6 of 24 passing. PU. I mean, that's like watching football in black and white in the 1950s, right? That's essentially, it's bad. I'll just leave it there. But 6 of 24 for 177 yards. I have 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. So point being, when those passes are completed, well, out of the 6, they average about 30 yards a pop. So they can create the big play. There's just not many opportunities to do exactly that. On top of that, across the 136 teams in the country, they rank 107th in 10-plus yard plays offensively. They only have 21 on plays gaining more than 20 yards. They have 17. That ranks 92nd. So again, not a team that creates a lot of explosive plays. This is much different than what Texas saw a week ago with San Jose State, which actually did have quite a few opportunities to create the big explosive. Obviously, we talked about Danny Scudero, one of the top slot wide receivers in the entire country. But more than that, they were able to run the football a little bit more successfully than I think many anticipated. But as a result, it doesn't matter if you're not able to punch that into the end zone or through the upright, something that San Jose State was only able to do one time. But altogether, look, I don't think you're going to be able to see the same talent from San Jose State to UTEP, and as a result, some of those sloppiness, some of those plays that weren't as tidy as you perhaps expected from the Texas defense, I expect that to be cleaned up quite a bit this weekend.
It's a really big week, Amanda, for the Texas offensive line because, like we talk about UTEP, I think they're leading the country. I think in tackles for loss, they're one of the nation's leaders in sacks. Like any time you're overmatched, you're going to bring all kinds of pressure. You're going to try to confuse communication up front. So again, another week where the offensive line can rep that. At the same time, kind of piggybacking on what CJ was talking about, it's a high risk, high reward defense. Like, yeah, they've got the splash plays in the backfield. They've also given up as many explosive plays as many as any defense in the country through 2 games. So I think they're in the bottom quarter in the country and 10 plus, 20 plus, and 30 plus yard plays from scrimmage allowed. So if the communication is there and if Arch can see it, diagnose it pre-snap, and make the proper adjustments, it could be a week where we see some fireworks.
It almost seems like this is like a perfect growth game for Texas because their defense, they're tied at number 1 overall for the season in sacks. They're number 1 in tackles for loss at 11.5. And with just a lack of cohesiveness, that was one of the major issues for the O-line against San Jose State. Do you see this as just a major growing opportunity for this O-line?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Look, again, UTEP has more size than that of San Jose State. And look, I don't know if that's going to necessarily dictate how they perform, but they didn't play great against a smaller, quicker front a week ago. And Sarkis talked about it Monday, talked about it post-game. The Texas fundamentals and techniques up front, they have to sustain the level of play that they expect regardless of who the opponent is, right? And it's interesting. It's almost like Texas wants to bake a cake, but depending on how big the cake is, or how big the cake they want is, it changes what they put into the ingredients. And that shouldn't be the case, right? You need everything. You need the flour, you need the sugar, you need the milk, you need the eggs, everything that's required every single weekend to build that cake. And Texas hasn't quite pieced that together through 2 weeks as consistently as I think they would hope. Now it's, again, a great opportunity to get back out there and play a different front with a different look, probably one that will bring a different game plan than what they've put on tape as well, something that we've talked about plenty of years in the past with Sarkisian. Now, how are they able to come out of the gates firing? Because that's something that they're going to need to do playing SEC schools in major. Yes, the icing in sprinkles, we'll add that to it. But point being, you got to make sure that technique is up to speed, and that hasn't been the case so far.
I'm sorry. We're a half hour into this show, and you've already mentioned winning is hard, and you mentioned cakes being baked. Dude, are you trying to give me like mid-2010s Texas football PTSD? Are you trying me, CJ? Are you pushing my buttons?
That's only 2 I got tonight, Jeff. That's only 2. There's another one coming.
Oh boy!
Please don't.
Checking the urine color of athletes or something. Is that going to be the next one?
Go.
Yeah. Hopefully we're all at championship hydration levels, but no, as far as like the growth opportunity for Texas in this game. Yeah. And kind of like what I said earlier, like you've got to maximize these next 8 quarters won't define the season, but it's going to go a long way toward determining whether you get to where you want to be or not. Like just fine tuning some things. And again, like clean situational football. I don't think that's too much to ask against an opponent like UTEP. Like, be better on 3rd down. If you have a 2-minute opportunity before the half, take advantage of it, go down and score points. Don't turn the ball over. Like just if you're cleaner overall, you'll be cleaner situationally. If you're cleaner situationally, the scoreboard will take care of itself.
Yeah. Hey, it is going to be 94 with about 40% humidity this weekend. So look, hydrate, right? Go be a championship level teammate, Jeff. There's the 3rd one.
Yeah. Look, I still think if you're at the bottom of that chart, like if you're the whatever,
you
like
in the hospital.
Exactly. Like you need a kidney transplant. You don't need to be in Area 51. Like you need a medical professional stat.
Anyways, all right, guys, get your questions in. Super chats will jump to the top of the list. Ask any questions, and we'll try to get to them after hearing from our next partner. Vonlane, you got to get from one city to another, and like always, it's a toss-up. Do you deal with the airport chaos and hope your flight isn't delayed, or do you brace yourself for hours behind the wheel, battling traffic and burning a day? Now there's a third option, and it's better in every way. You arrive at a luxury hotel terminal, no TSA lines, no long-term parking lots, just a seamless boarding experience that takes minutes, not hours. You settle into one of 22 oversized first-class seats with 140-degree recline, leg rests, and a cabin attendant serving complimentary snacks, beverages, and on select trips, full meals. Need to relax, lean back, and enjoy the ride. Want to stay productive? There's high-speed Wi-Fi and power at every seat. Fall travel is booking fast. Reserve now for October trips to Texas versus Oklahoma and Dallas, F1 and ACL in Austin, or college football weekends in Nashville, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston. Vonlane connects Austin, Dallas, Houston, Fort Worth, San Antonio, Nashville, Atlanta, Memphis, and now Knoxville, Tennessee, the Woodlands, Texas, and Plano, Texas. Visit Vonlane.com and use code OTF25 to save $20 on your first ride. Vonlane, elevated regional bus transportation.
I think the chat gave me a great idea based on what CJ said earlier. Like if somebody like gets booted out of the chat or whatever, they shouldn't see like you've been blocked or whatever. It should just be like Charlie Strong's abnormally long finger pointing at like an exit sign or like a block, like a circle with a line through it.
Or have you ever seen the meme of like it's like just a spray bottle and it just says no under it, and it's like when you're telling your cat not to do something, you spray them and it's just no.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
That is the one past, the dark decade, the lost decade that I will reference. The Charlie Strong finger, the abnormally long index finger, needs to be a bigger player in our presentation.
Yes, that was what held him on for one more year. I will thank him for that. That was my senior year of college. I did get some happiness in one football game.
That's got to be nice. Either that or we could do Matthews laying down the hammer in the chat, and it's just Tom Herman swinging and whiffing at the locker rooms. We're going back down that route. I kind of I'm a fan of both of them.
There you go. We'll have to brainstorm that offline. Anyways.
I try to block that out, but like that should have been a red flag that I like didn't just ignore, just completely gloss over. Like it was a pretty big red flag that was evident early on.
Well, the fact that they posted it too.
That's it too.
Anyways, y'all get your questions in. Once again, Super Chats jump to the top of our list, and we have some questions about injuries. Season don't start till Jonah touches the field. Any update on that? I feel like we get that question just about every show.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a fair question to have because we haven't heard a whole lot from Steve Sarkisian in regards to when or where we will see Jonah Williams on the field. He did practice towards the back end of last week. Now, again, should Texas take care of business earlier in football games, it should provide a path for guys like Jonah Williams to get on the field earlier in games. We didn't really see Texas pull its true starters until about 8-10 minutes left in that fourth quarter. And again, as someone who predicted a 50 burger, I'm no longer doing that until I see it. But if you want to see these guys on the field, you got to look at that first and second team group on both offense and defense and say, take care of your job. That way you can get a Jonah Williams on the field. That way you can get a Nick Brooks on the field or a Jamie French, right? I think we all want to see that. But right now, no updates on Jonah Williams in terms of when we expect him on the field. All I believe is, look, this upcoming weekend should be an opportunity that we see number 9 running around at safety for the first time.
Yeah,
I saw this comment. Jack Andrews isn't hurt, is he?
He was dinged up following the game a week ago. So will he play 100% of the snaps? Probably not. Will he play at all? Look, I think it's worth asking the question. So he was dinged up in the lower leg right now again. He got rolled up on, I believe it was his left ankle, a bit of some swelling in that regard, but I don't think it's anything that will keep him out long-term, but something that Texas is certainly going to monitor. And look, playing UTEP, you shouldn't need him to go out there and be at his best or at all for Texas to be successful in this football game.
Dang, you mean they might actually have to give Nick Townsend more snaps?
Oh, man.
Crushed if that happened.
Oh.
I'm all for more Nick Townsend. By the way, going back to the super chat, I have I don't know if it's wise, but I've shelved my idea of Jonah Williams returning punts this season. I think at this point it's probably not going to happen. But I would like to see Ryan Niblett like at least attempt to return one against UTEP. And if not, I mean, that's one of those deals. If you don't firm that up, like your punt returner, CJ, you talked about it a lot in the Ohio State game. Like that job, if it's not executed properly, can cost you field position. And in a tight game, that could be the difference between a win and a loss.
Oh, definitely. Those hidden yards, they really start to rack up. And, I think Texas had a true roller coaster at punt return a year ago with Silas Bolden. You never knew what was going to happen, whether it was clean, whether it was ugly, whether it worked, whether it didn't. But you knew that the punt was going to be caught. And that, to me, is the big thing. And, again, you might have a mini heart attack watching Silas Bolden catch a punt, but the punt was going to be caught, and those yards were not going to be lost as a result. And against an Ohio State, those yards mean something, right? And especially when your offense is stuck in mud. You need those extra yards to not just flip field position back, but if you're able to get 20 yards off of where you are, that might be field goal range for Mason Shipley, who on Monday, Jeff told us that 55 feels like it's in range. He's made kicks from 60. So I'd like to see that cleaned up this week, and I'd like to not see a punt touch the ground at all. But is that 100% reasonable? It's a give and take with how much strength Texas is dealing with at the opposing punting opposition. But I would love to see a playmaker like Jonah Williams back deep, where during his high school tape, it just looks like it's the most natural thing in the world to him to go up there, catch punts, and then make guys miss afterward.
As long as Mason Shipley's good from like 45 in, we'll worry about 55 later. Like you just tell me, hey, 42-yard field goal, it's cash money automatic, then I'm down for it.
I mean, by the way, something from that right hash.
Yeah, the right hash needs to be much kinder to Texas this year. By the way, if you guys see me looking off screen, Texas volleyball in Louisville just started a little bit ago. Ooh. It's a top 5 volleyball matchup.
That's a good one. All right, we got another question about injuries. Any other injury updates outside of the ones we mentioned? Anybody else that fans might be able to expect to potentially not see the field this weekend?
Yeah, DeAndre Moore is the other big one. Look, I don't believe that the original injury has been disclosed by Steve Sarkisian, so I'm not going to speculate there. But somewhere in the upper part of his body, shoulder, head, Texas has been very cautious with him. He did not practice Monday or Tuesday. He was out at practice in shorts and in sweats and a T-shirt. So look, that's something that Texas is going to need in the long run, and they're not going to risk a long-term injury with DeAndre Moore this weekend against UTEP if not necessary. Look for Dalen McCutcheon. Ryan Niblett will be in that conversation. Aaron Butler. And the one thing I want to see is Texas has to figure out that short, quick screen game. I'm not saying with those three specifically, but if they're going to be on the field, Texas has to realize who is capable of blocking up front and who are their guys that they can rely on to make guys miss with the ball in their hands. UTEP, we've talked about it. They don't miss tackles. They only have 8 missed tackles on the entire season, and they're the number 1 team in the country by PFF in tackling so far this year. So if Texas wants to deploy some of that quick screen game to the wide receivers, if they want to get the running backs involved in swing routes as well, people have to be on the outside blocking much more consistently than what we've seen so far this season.
Man, that CJ, the 2023 game at TCU, I forget, was it Xavier Worthy catching a screen where Jonte Cook whiffed on a block, or was it the other way around?
I believe it was Jonte out blocking, something I'm sure he had never done at DeSoto, but
yeah, there was a lot of stuff in the San Jose State game that reminded me of that, and that's not stuff I want to be reminded of while watching the perimeter screen game. So just another thing on Chris Jackson's sheet. Gotta get cleaned up.
All right, another super chat. Thanks for asking, Daniel. Can Nate Kibble start for this year's team?
Look, he played well. Jeff, I don't know if you watched him or went back and got to see him in that late fourth quarter, but I thought he played really well at guard. And again, I haven't necessarily been blown away by Connor Stroh, and I still have a lot of questions about Nate Umozolo and what he can do at left guard. So look, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if over the next 2 weeks we saw Kibble kind of thrown into that first team conversation. But right now we have yet to hear that that's the case in practice.
Can he? Yes. Does he need to? I would prefer him not to, because that probably means that, like CJ said, that Stroh NATO thing probably ended up getting figured out. Or if he does start, that means that they still haven't gotten it figured out, and he just gets to a point where his development is such that Kyle Flood feels forced that he's got to put him on the field. So,
Jeff, you mentioned earlier about how you don't see anybody on the Texas schedule being able to out-talent Texas, but after watching OU/Mateer the first 2 weeks, how would we defend them with the talent that we have available on the defensive side of the ball?
I would. That's going to be a game where we'll see. Florida is going to be a nice test for that. I'm not calling Florida a warm-up game, but how you defend DJ Lagway is pretty similar to how you're going to have to defend John Mateer. The thing is, you're going to have to mix it up from 1 week to the next, because look, you're going to have a really good game plan against Florida, but you can't go into OU against that same game with that same game plan, because Ben Arbuckle and that offensive staff will pick it apart and they'll be ready for it. So spying with different guys, like, it doesn't have to be just not that old school kind of, tunnel vision line of thinking of like, okay, who's the spy? Anybody can spy, man. Colin Simmons can spy. Ty Anthony Smith can do it. Trey Moore can do it. Ant Hill can do it. Jelani McDonald can do it. I just named 5 guys right there off the rip that can do it. So how you do it against Lagway is going to be similar to how you have to do it against Mateer. You're just going to have to change it up a little bit.
I'm running cover 3 in the back end and saying those outside the number throws that we saw so successful against Michigan. And chat, please take it easy on me today. Huh?
His favorite thing to talk about.
Question.
Somebody said you should make him a cake up here. Let me see if I can find it. There you go. It's customary to make a cake for the winner of Red River rivalry.
All
Since
right.
you were going on and on about your fully cooked cake earlier.
Yeah. Well, if you heard me talk about ingredients there, you could tell that I don't bake cakes very often. But no, I'm playing cover 3. I'm taking away the middle of the field with a single high, center field safety. And I'm looking at those cornerbacks on the outside saying those outside the numbers throws are getting taken away by the corners on the outside. But altogether, Jeff, as long as you've got a guy that can spy, and Texas has 6 or 7 right now, and you see how I'm persevering through what Matthew's throwing up on the screen for me. I'm not rattled today. Not today. And okay, I might have lost train of thought. I am rattled. Next topic.
So sorry. That actually wasn't Matthew.
I'm going to start pouting.
No, CJ standing in there like Colt 2008 against OU. Just bring it. Show me whatever you got.
I mean, some of these comments, I gotta commend y'all for creativity.
I can't let Sandman win, man. I can't do it.
I mean, you just threw in your towel there. Okay, we can
now what would be good for CJ would be good for Texas if Mateer scores a touchdown and takes his helmet off. Then okay, that's a penalty. Like, you just tack 15 onto the end of that. So is that a win-win, CJ?
Yeah. I would take it.
He just wants us to switch the subject from material.
Right.
He's like,
No, but to your point though, CJ, about the OU receivers, like I would say maybe you bracket Deion Burks, but none of those guys at this point would scare me enough to where I feel like I've got to roll coverage to one side of the field or the other.
I agree. And on top of that, I don't think there's any threat in the run game. And I've heard enough from Oklahoma Twitter. I've seen enough of it. I still have friends up in the Norman area. That run game is not even close to where they want it to be. And with Jade Knott coming in from Cal this offseason, the expectations that he would kind of take the reins and be that bell cow. We haven't seen him all too much. I thought Blaylock has been a pleasant surprise, but he's a little dinged up early on as well. So, look, if that is the case where you make a team very one-dimensional, and Texas has been known to do this in the past in big games, if they're able to do exactly that against Mateer, things are going to get very difficult for that OU offense. The question is, can they do that? Will they be able to do that? That's the big question for Texas. And that's something that I'm hoping to see against Florida, because no disrespect to the next 2 teams Texas plays, but they should be able to do this very easily against UTEP. They should be able to do that against Sam Houston very easily. So the big test is Florida, because unlike Oklahoma, I do think Florida has a great run game with Jaden Ball. And they have a quarterback that can sling it all over the field, just like John Mateer. So that's the ultimate test. But it's going to be fun. And the next month or so is going to be a pretty interesting build-up for how this game ultimately ends up in Dallas.
I think the two I think Rod and I talked about this on one of our preview shows. As a matter of fact, it was previewing the A&M game, our way too early look at A&M. I really think that if you just look at this personnel, Florida and Texas A&M have the two best run games in the SEC. At least they should, from a standpoint of combo of O-line and running backs. As good as Mateer was against Michigan, to your point, CJ, I just don't think Oklahoma's there. Oklahoma reminds me a little bit tailback-wise of kind of where Texas was last year. Like before we knew what Trey Wisner was as a proven commodity, when Baxter went out, you're like, okay, what do you really have at this point? I just don't know. I think one of those guys, whether it's Blaylock or Ott, one of those guys is capable, but I think it'd be real easy for them to get predictable.
I agree. That is actually a really good point, because that group of backs is very distinguished in what they're good at. Yeah. Just like how Texas, with one or the two on the field a year ago, you knew what Texas was most likely going to do schematically in the run game, but also when they go out in the passing game, that one's either running a wheel route, a Texas route, or the other one's going to chip in and block and kind of be your safety valve.
Yep.
All right. We'll get to a couple more of y'all's questions right after we thank our partners over at Hayes City Store. Jeff, I'll let you take it away for them.
Exactly. There are very few restaurants that once you go to them, you immediately know that place is just special. And that's Hayes City Store. It's one of those places. It's scratch-made Texas comfort food. They've got their famous truck stop enchiladas, the award-winning chicken fried steak, homemade desserts. Get the key lime pie. You'll thank me later. All of it's delicious. All of it's from scratch. They've also got live music 6 nights a week, 50 beer taps, ice-cold long necks, and tasty margaritas. They've got 11 TVs in their ice house. That place is a perfect setup for game days. You want to watch a college game out there, NFL Sunday. It's perfect. They've got brunch Sundays from 10 to 3. Hayes City Store is also dog friendly. They've got a tree net for the kids. So bring your whole crew, gather everybody up, and head on over to Hayes City Store. For more information, check out the website at HayesCityStoreTX.com. Again, that's HayesCityStoreTX.com. Hayes City Store. It's uniquely Texas and definitely one of my favorite spots in the greater Austin area.
All right. Thanks so much, Jeff. And we got time for a couple more questions. Sean, what's going on with Ryan Wingo and DeAndre Moore? I know you went into Moore a little bit earlier, but as far as Wingo goes.
Yeah, Wingo's healthy. Wingo will be on the field this weekend. Again, it's a great opportunity. I sound like a broken record at this point, but this upcoming weekend, same Houston State included, all about opportunities, all about taking that step forward for what we've seen over the last 2 years offensively for Texas. Can they get there? Yeah, I think so. I think they can exceed what we've seen on the field, but it all starts up front. It all starts with that big connection with Arch Manning and Ryan Wingo. So these next 2 weeks, hopefully, we see some coverages start to spin over to Parker Livingston. And I don't mean that to take away from the success that he's had already this year, but if that's the case, well, then you've got a Ryan Wingo and more favorable matchups in which we've seen Texas already utilize him as a focal piece in years in the last year and a half. So hopefully that helps ease him into things because he's been forcing, he's been pressing. Things haven't come naturally in 2025, and I don't think that was the expectation coming into 2025. Ultimately, for Wingo, it's just got to see him go through the hoop. The first sluggo, the first bang 8 route, just see the first down, get up, and all right, now we can get to working with Arch hand in hand now, rather than the kind of analogy I had last night where it was like two magnets going against each other and they just kind of repelled. They got to get in sync.
Yeah, I'm looking at some PFF numbers for Ryan Wingo. Behind the line of scrimmage, 3 targets, 3 catches for 11 yards. If you look at the rest of the field, that's 13 targets, 3 catches, 56 yards.
Oof.
Yeah, it's not great. And in the intermediate game, 4 targets, 1 catch, 10 yards, and 1 drop. Not great, not ideal.
All right. On the other receivers, is this the deepest Texas has been at tight end since the 2000s?
I believe so.
Y'all were talking about this a little bit last night.
Jeff, can you talk? I mean, they rolled 5 deep week 2 into a season.
I'm not ready to say that this is, 2004 where we had Bo Scaife and David Thomas or 05 where he had David Thomas and Jermichael Finley was redshirting. Like, I'm not ready to say it's that kind of deal. But, I mean, that's one thing, like, going back to some of the other coaches we talked about, like Mac towards the end could never get tight end figured out. They had injuries and all kinds of other stuff. Excuse me. You know, Charlie and had some tight ends, but didn't really know how to use them. And Tom Herman had some talented tight ends, but again, never really figured out how to use them. Like Sark and Jeff Banks, they've recruited tight ends, gotten them out of the portal. There's been some misses, but they've had a heck of a lot of hits. So that tight end room, it's as healthy as it's been in a long time. And the fact that injuries is, you know, the only portal guy that they've got, everybody else, Spencer Shannon, Jordan, Washington, Townsend, Winston, like those are all homegrown guys that you've recruited from the prep ranks. So it's as healthy as it's been. Is it as deep? Not ready to say that yet.
Fair.
All right. Jason, thanks so much for your question. Sorry, late to the party. If it hasn't been asked, what constitutes success outside of score for this game? And I like this question a lot, especially, I mean, Texas score was what it needed to be last week, a 31-point win, but wasn't exactly what a lot of people would deem as a success based on what it looked like while you were watching it.
Yeah, look, got to clean up third downs. You got to clean up the turnovers. You got to be more successful earlier in games. You know, we've talked about it. Texas, 21 games over the last 2.5 seasons where they've gotten the ball first, only 2 scores on those 21 possessions. That's not great. You know, it took multiple drives in each half to put points on the board. Again, that's not great. You got to start faster offensively. I think defensively, Texas is pretty close to being like at its final form entering the SEC. They'll continue to evolve, obviously, but it's offensively where things have got to clean up with the turnovers, with the red zone success, with the third down efficiency. And if Sarkisian in that group can really start to click on what works with Arch Manning, that's another factor that I think Texas can really start to benefit from, is just understanding the strengths and starting to utilize them a little bit more. We heard Rod Babers on the breakdown earlier today say, hey, straight drop backs are exactly where Texas needs to start going with Arch. The play action is just not cutting it. In fact, out of 141 qualifying quarterbacks, according to PFF, 141 in play action pass attempts, Arch Manning ranks 136th.
Yikes.
With no play action, he's the number 1 quarterback in the country. There's a clear discrepancy in what he's good at and what he's not. And right now, it's the play action pass.
I love what you said there, CJ. The only thing I'll add is that also bleeds into the Ryan Wingo discussion. Like, I really hope, and we know Sark scripts, I mean, is it 20? Is it 40? I don't know how many plays Sark has on that opening script, but you've got to spend, I really hope they spend this week figuring out, all right, what's going to help Arch and help Ryan Wingo, which in turn, if those two get on the same page, like I think we all agree, like that's going to be the gasoline on the fire that kickstarts this offense. But you got to figure out like what throws are going to get Arch in a rhythm early and what's going to get Ryan Wingo in a rhythm. Like get him the ball in favorable spots where he can make something happen after the catch. Just get him comfortable, get him some confidence. If you do that, that'll naturally help your drive starters. You'll be better on first down, which means you'll either be making a first down in 2 snaps, avoiding third down altogether. Like it all connects. I really want to see them get the ball to Ryan Wingo, like some easy high percentage throws for Arch, get him to Wingo, let him go work.
Yeah.
I did see an interesting stat from Rod Babers. He posted on Twitter earlier today. The Longhorns have only converted 1 third down of 4 or more yards so far this season. Texas is currently converting third downs of 4 yards or longer just 6% of the time. Texas has converted just 2 third downs via the pass, and both have been Livingston touchdowns. That's a yikes. So I think seeing that addressed, regardless
that
of
makes me want to throw up.
That was probably the worst thing, one of the worst stats I've seen from this Texas team in a very long time.
Yeah. Look, again, it's week 2, you know, and I see folks kind of clamoring in the chat that, hey, week 2 stats are meaningless. Maybe, you know, in the greater picture, probably. But it does give you a very clear indication of where Texas is struggling right now. And third downs is very much one of those. So that's got to be cleaned up. And Rod also threw out a tremendous stat about the success throwing to bunches, throwing to, close trips formations or stack formations. If that's the case, there's your third down remedy. It should just be that simple. So hopefully, again, God, if I had a nickel every time I said this today or this entire week, I'd be, making myself a nice, big, fat Chipotle bowl tonight. But this has to be a weekend in which Texas steps forward on offense. It just has to be.
You don't. This is one of the things. Yeah, this is one of the things that I think Sark may be just overthinking it a little bit. Like, you don't have to sacrifice your creativity in the name of playing with a physical edge. Like, you can have motions and shifts and, leverage different formations, do all the stuff that Sark does on offense. That's not going to prevent you or get you, that's not going to prevent you from playing with a physical edge and having the type of running game that he wants to have. Like, you can have both. I don't know why you can't have both. So I don't know if it's just him thinking like, hey, if we're more kind of give defenses less window dressing, that'll kind of streamline everything and your short yardage offense will be better, whatever. I just think you've just got to go do what you do. And the fact that we're looking at 3rd and 4th or 3rd and 4 or longer, like especially your 3rd and mediums, that should be right where Sark wants it, because 3rd and medium, like the entire playbook should be open. So yeah, that's the stuff that I wonder if Sark's just overthinking it, needs to go back to the drawing board and be like, look, this is who we are. We can play with a physical edge, but we need this other stuff. All these things that make this offense special, you got to have that stuff too.
I'm pumped for this weekend. I am. And again, you only get so many college football weekends in your life. You only get so many, right? Probably 12 to 15 per year, however many years you're alive. This is one of them. You only get so many with Arch Manning as the quarterback of the Texas Longhorns. So look, I've been harsh on this offense, but at the end of the day, it's because I like many of y'all believe that there's a very high ceiling with this team, given the defense that this team possesses. So this is the opportunity again that Texas has the chance to get right. And I want to see the steps taken forward all the time that Texas has to get right for the big matchup that's coming against John Mateer. Y'all see how I lead that up? But all together, look, it's going to be fun. Points are going to be scored. Touchdowns will be had. Memories will be made. And it's going to be a beautiful Saturday, because you only get 52 Saturdays a weekend or a year. Only 52, one a weekend. We live for these.
Sounds like a great positive note to end things on. You should be a motivational speaker, CJ.
That's all the positivity I have.
He's expired.
He's got it all out in one shot. Just wasted it all.
Mm-hmm.
It's all out. All right. Well, thanks so much, guys. It's been a great show. A laundry list of things that we want to see improve this weekend, and hopefully it happens. Thanks so much for joining us on Texas Football Longhorn Livestream. I'm Amanda Atwell for CJ Vogel and Jeff Howell. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys, and hook 'em horns to catch Coffee and Football tomorrow morning.